Welcome to The Way Home with Laura Smith, the show that brings you wonderful guests, helpful advice, and uplifting stories. The Way Home. Live inspired. Here's your host, Laura Smith.
Well, I didn't know this, but now I do, that April is National Minority Health Month. And that's very important because it's a time that's actually dedicated to raising awareness about different health disparities and the need for access to innovative treatments. And I have two people that are going to tell a compelling story today about how treatment has been very helpful for a gentleman by the name of Tony. He is a multiple myeloma survivor and a Carvykti patient, and Dr. Brandon Blue. He's an assistant member and clinical instructor in the Department of Malignant Hematology at Moffitt Cancer Center. Both of you, thank you so much for joining us today on this important topic.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much. We're happy to be here.
So, yes, I didn't realize that it was National Minority Health Month. And it's really strange to find out that there are actually certain diseases within the human landscape that affect certain people more than others. And this one certainly is one that I'm reading about, the multiple myeloma. And Tony, you're a survivor of this, but you tell an interesting story because it is something that you were really helped by with being a Carvykti treatment. Tell us what that means and, you know, why you're here with Dr. Brandon Blue today in the sense that you have survived and you're thriving.
Yes. So sharing my journey, and especially with my experience with multiple myeloma and now Carvykti, during my diagnosis and of my high-risk multiple myeloma and being diagnosed on September 18th of 2013 at the age of 39, it just changed my life overnight. And at that point, I couldn't walk, I couldn't work, I was bedridden, and I had to file for disability. I mean, life just changed for me. And what made it even harder is that I had those signs. They had been there for years. And I first noticed blood spots under my tongue back in 2005. And on August 27th of 2013, I had an unfortunate fall after losing my footing while working with the client. And after that ER visit, I followed up with a neurosurgeon who ordered an MRI, which revealed multiple fractures and a serious back injury. And I ended up back in the ER again and was close to being discharged without any answers. And it wasn't until someone very close to me stepped in and advocated and for additional testing that I finally got the clarity and the answers that I needed. And by then, the disease had progressed significantly with multiple spinal fractures, kidney failure, anemia. I was even told I might never return to the fitness industry again, which was devastating. And for almost 12 years, I went through multiple treatments, including chemotherapy, a stem cell transplant in 2016, but I relapsed. And in May of 2025, I received Carvykti. And that was the turning point for me to really have that single infusion with the potential for a treatment-free period really stood out to me. And since then, I've been doing very well, active in my personal life, and continue to work in the myeloma community alongside of Dr. Blue. And my journey has been about resilience, but it also and also about learning how to advocate for myself every step of the way. And how I did that, with my oncologist and the role and the treatment decisions for Carvykti, and what made that relationship so important to me is that your oncologist and experts like Dr. Blue have been a very critical part of my journey. Early on, I realized that it wasn't just about receiving that care, it was about building that relationship and partnership. I needed someone who really listened and explained my options clearly and respected my voice in that decision-making process. That truly made all the difference, especially when you're navigating relapses and considering newer treatments like Carvykti. And having an open and honest relationship allowed me to ask questions, understand the risk and the benefits, and feel very comfortable in the decisions that we were making together. I always tell patients your oncologist is one of your greatest resources. And when you build that relationship on that trust and communication, it changes everything.
Tony, we're happy for all of those things that you've mentioned, for the help that you got, for advocating for yourself, and also having others to advocate for you. Dr. Brandon Blue, tell us a little bit about multiple myeloma and really the group of people that seems to be more affected by it than others.
Yeah, great question. Thank you so much for having me. So I'm Dr. Brandon Blue, and I am a multiple myeloma expert. I'm working with Johnson & Johnson and Legend Biotech to really talk about my experiences in treating patients with relapsed and refractory multiple myeloma. But the first question is, well, what is multiple myeloma, right? It is a cancer, okay? It's a cancer of the bone marrow. All right. So I want people to understand, if they were to slice their long bones in half, it's not going to be solid bone all the way through. Inside of that bone is what they call the bone marrow cavity. All right. You say, well, what is a bone marrow cavity? Why do we have that? Well, the reason that we have bone marrow is that is what makes our blood. All right. So the blood that you have when you were 30 is different than you were 20 and you were, a teenager, because your body constantly makes that blood, and the bone marrow space is where that happens. Well, what happens is that you can actually get a cancer inside of that bone marrow cavity. And one of those cancers is multiple myeloma. Well, what we've learned is that unfortunately, there are certain communities that get disproportionately affected by multiple myeloma. So people who are of African ancestry, people who are of the Hispanic community, unfortunately get disappropriately diagnosed with this disease, but also sometimes can get diagnosed even at younger ages. And really, we just want to share awareness for that and just let people know about some of the great treatment options that even though you may get diagnosed, we do have options, especially when it comes to these new therapy, such as CAR T-cell therapy, and Carvykti is one of those options when it comes to patients with multiple myeloma.
That's really good to know. And I wouldn't know. And as Tony was mentioning, it's hard to diagnose. And it took a while for him to really be able to have it figured out for him, but he had to advocate for himself, which is, I think, probably true for all of us. I mean, at the end of the day, we're the ones experiencing everything. So we can't be shy when it comes to, getting answers and not giving up until we get those answers. And I'm so grateful that he found a doctor like that in you for it. So Carvykti, it is a medication. Is it a one-time application, or is it something that has to be used over and over in one's experience?
Yeah, great question. So what happens is that we have been able to harness the power of the immune system. So your immune system typically can fight off, infections and viruses and those kind of things. Well, we can use now your immune system to help fight off cancer. And that's what CAR T-cell therapy is. It uses that power that is within our cells to be able to help fight off our cancer. And so what Carvykti is used for in multiple myeloma is really targeting that multiple myeloma that's inside of that bone marrow space, but using your body's immune system cells. And we've seen some great results. Now, the frequency of how many infusions and some of those things, that can be kind of on an individual level. But for sure, we've been seeing great results with this product.
I mean, I've been hearing for years that this type of cell therapy is, going to branch out in all different ways, and people are going to find help and even cures. Is it something that you are hoping that can be an a cure? Can there be a 100% turnaround from having this disorder, from having the multiple myeloma?
We're definitely hopeful, right? Like that's where clinical research is really important. We're always trying to make the next year better. So what we're doing now in 2026 will be different in 2027 and 2028, but we're hoping that we put one foot in front of the other so that we're making steps forward when it comes to finding that cure. So we're really hopeful, and we really think that CAR T is going to play some part of that cure algorithm.
Mm-hmm. Well, we hope along with you there. Where is a good website or a good place to get more information, both on multiple myeloma and then also Carvykti in particular and this type of treatment?
Yeah. So, I think the first conversation needs to talk with your doctor and say, hey, if you either have multiple myeloma or your loved one has multiple myeloma, have a discussion with your oncologist to try to see, is CAR T right for you? Is Carvykti right for you? Say you've heard about it, but you really want to kind of see if it's the right fit. But also, too, you want to read about it. So you can go to carvykti.com, CARVYKTI.com, and maybe get some of the details about it, but have a discussion with your doctor and see if it's the right fit for you.
Great to know. Again, that's carvykti.com, and it's spelled CARVYKTI.com, carvykti.com. Well, to both of you, Tony, and to Dr. Brandon Blue, thank you both for being here today, giving lots of help and hope to people that might be dealing with the same thing. And I'm hoping that one day we won't have to have it anymore, and you'll be back to talk about that. But thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having us.
You're listening to The Way Home with Laura Smith. Once again, here's Laura.
There's something, if it hadn't been for today's interview, I probably would have forgotten. I would have left it in the ancient archives of history of my life and many others. And that would be taking the SAT, which, if I do remember correctly, I didn't do so great, and lucky I got into college, but wow, have times changed, and I know that there are so many resources available to young ones who are using the SAT to help them to apply for colleges and such. We have someone here today, Prscilla Rodriguez. She is the Senior Vice President, College Readiness Assessments. Thank you so much for joining us today. You're bringing up, I'm not sure if they are the best and happiest memories, but nonetheless, I can't wait to hear what you have to share today.
Well, thank you. Thanks for the time. As you noted, this is a great time to talk about the SAT because millions of students, usually high school juniors, have just or are about to take the SAT kind of between March and June. That's a prime time for students to get started with the SAT as they're approaching the end of high school and making their plans for life after high school.
Right. And if I remember back in my day, and we're talking the 70s, late 70s, in order to get into college, you had to take the SAT. I don't think that we were allowed to apply without an SAT score. Am I right about that, or was it different decades ago?
No, I think you're right. And that was true when I applied as well. That changed relatively recent. So before the pandemic, just about every college and university required a test score on the application. That changed rapidly during the pandemic, right? When students couldn't gather to take these tests, colleges understandably moved to policies they called test optional. If you've got a score and you like it, put it on the application. If you don't have one or you don't like it, don't. 5 years later, many colleges still have that test optional policy. Many others have returned to required. So today's students are navigating it's not quite half-half, but like a mixed world of testing policies. So the first piece of advice I want to give to students and their families is as they're starting to build that list of colleges they're really interested in, pay attention to the application policies, especially for the tests, because it does differ. And given that some require it and some make it the student's choice, students are still overwhelmingly taking the SAT. And they're doing it because they want to keep their options open, right? But when you have a score, you can apply anywhere. And for many, many students, that score is a point of strength, right? They feel it does show what they learned in reading, writing, and math during high school. And they know that it's a measure, it's a score that colleges trust and understand, right? If you put yourself in the shoes of a college, you're getting tons of applications. from amazing students all over the country, including from high schools you've never visited, you've never heard of, you don't know what classes they offer, you don't know how they grade, and they have ways to make sense of all of that. But when they have an SAT score, they have this standardized way to understand what a student has really learned, and that's only getting more important in a world with AI, right? The SAT is free of AI. It is 2 hours where students just show what they can do by themselves. And that's becoming increasingly important to college so that they know that this is a student who can really succeed.
Yeah, I would imagine AI has changed everything, and even in that arena. So you're saying that you do take the SAT test still, and when you do, you have no access to AI or computers while
that's exactly
you're doing
right.
it. Well, that's good. That makes me feel a little bit better.
Yeah. I'll mention you do have access to computers in that the SAT. So another thing that's changed is that the SAT is no longer taken on paper. So those booklets and the little bubble sheets are gone. That's true as of 2 years ago. So this is all quite new. But students were telling us that they live and learn digitally, and they're like, come on, SAT, catch up. Like, I'm not used to bubble sheets and paper test booklets. So we digitized the SAT about 2 years ago. It's been really well received by students. They greatly prefer taking it on a laptop or tablet. But the way they take it is on a testing app that we developed at College Board specifically for the SAT. And that app, when you're taking the real SAT on test day, completely locks down the student's computer. They can't look at anything else. They can't access anything else. No instant messages are going to pop up. You're in lockdown mode, as we call it, for the 2 hours, so that, again, the SAT remains this trusted signal of what a student has learned and can do on their own in reading, writing, and math.
Okay, that's really good to know. Now, I seem to remember that there were some students that were much more fastidious than I was, and they would take some type of training or tutoring before the SAT so that they could be sure to do it well. So they would take like mock tests and things like that. I did not do that. Probably should have, but I didn't. Now, are there resources like that, but maybe not sitting in the room with somebody who's telling you what to expect? Are there different types of resources now to prepare for the SAT?
Yes, that's another big change and I think a great change. So 10 years ago, we made a commitment as a nonprofit organization that all students should have access to free world-class practice, that money should not stand in the way of a student's ability to practice and feel confident on test day. 10 years later, our free practice, and some of it we do with partners that I'll talk about in just a second, has become the number one way students get ready for the SAT, period. And that makes sense when you think about it because we make the SAT, so who knows it better than us? And I want to quickly talk about three kind of key ways that students can practice. The first is on that Blue Book testing app that they're going to use on test day. Students can download it at any point. It's always free. And inside of it are 8 full-length official practice tests. We made them so they look and work exactly like the real thing. Students get a score back instantly. They find out what questions they got right, which ones they got wrong, and why. They get some diagnostics about what skills they most need to improve on. And then they can take that over to our partners at Khan Academy. It's another nonprofit. We've been partnered for 10 years. They are leaders in online teaching and learning for students. Just about every high schooler already knows about Khan Academy. But they then have videos, tutorials, quizzes, and practice questions that line up exactly with our SAT skills. So you can come over and say, these are the 3 skills I most need to improve on, and focus your practice time. You can come back and do another practice test to see that you are in fact improving. The third of the 3 that I want to quickly mention is our newest practice offering with another nonprofit called Schoolhouse.world. They run virtual, meaning kind of over Zoom, boot camps for students to prepare for the SAT. So these are students getting together in groups for free, weekly or twice a week for about a month before an SAT, going through a curriculum that we worked on with Schoolhouse.world, and they are being tutored by a peer, another high school student, but a student who's already taken the SAT and scored very well. And the feedback we've gotten is amazing. They love learning together. They love the kind of live classes as an addition to the solo practice I talked about.
That's really amazing. And so it's peers helping peers, and also getting scores right away so you can go back and really check through it all. And you said they do mimic somewhat the test, not in exact same questions, but in similar types of approaches to questions so people can see how it's being asked. Okay.
That's exactly right. So it's the same kinds of questions, but I mean, not questions you'll see on test day, but same kind, same skills, same structure of the question, same timing. So that, I mean, it's really meant to simulate, test day and the test you will take.
Right. Okay. And so now when students are taking the test now, we used to have somebody at the front of the room. I remember it was like 2 hours. It was in the morning, like 11 o'clock in the morning or something. And, it was so quiet and it was kind of scary. I do remember that. Now, what are the rooms like and what is it like when students now take the test, having done it with all these practice types before? What is the actual day like?
Yeah, it's a great question. So while the test is now taken digitally on Blue Book, like I mentioned, it is still taken together in person. So this is not a take it at home in your bedroom kind of test, right? We still want to gather students together in rooms with trained adult proctors who walk through the room, make sure everything is going smoothly and that everything is, above board. And the test is now shorter than it was. So prior to 2 years ago, when it was a paper SAT, it was a little over 3 hours long. It is now just over 2 hours long. We were able to take about an hour out of it as we moved to digital. And students love that. They're feeling less exhausted. They're feeling better able to focus and show their best work. So in some ways, a lot has changed, but that act of kind of gathering with your peers in a room with an adult there to help and monitor, that part hasn't changed.
And is the actual program itself, the Blue Book, it is absolutely secure, safe, and fair. No one has to worry about the machine
doing anything.
That is
right. Yes, that is. Okay. Exactly. No, that's so important and something we work very, very hard on. But yes, Blue Book is really, I think, the most secure testing application out there. It ensures that when students are in the real SAT, they can't access anything else. So their score reflects what they've learned and what they can do.
Well, gosh, I mean, this is so interesting, and it looks like it's made so many wonderful improvements. The overall experience of taking the SAT. Now I wish I could do it. Now I wish I could do it now, but yeah, too late for me, but not for others. When should a family start gearing their young one that's in high school towards these and start training for them? Like, is there a recommended age or grade?
It's a great question. So most students take the SAT for the first time spring of their junior year. So like right now, March, April, May, or June. That is the point at which they've seen and learned what we test on the SAT. So assuming a student's going to take it for the first time in spring of junior year, we recommend that they register for their SAT just a few months before that and start practicing around the same time. Use those practice tests, use Khan Academy, consider signing up for a schoolhouse.world boot camp. Students don't need to go overboard, but they want to feel familiar with the Blue Book app, the length of the test, the kinds of questions, and figure out what skills they're kind of most rusty on, and focus on those. And then many, not all, but many students will take the SAT one more time, usually very early in senior year, August, September, October, as they're kind of preparing their college applications. A lot of students do see improvement from their first to their second SAT, especially if they did targeted practice in the middle.
That's great. And can they find out which colleges and universities are indeed requiring the SAT? So maybe the families want to gear them towards the ones that absolutely accept SAT and maybe not go towards a school that would, not need it. Is there a way to find out which schools offer or actually require it for admittance?
That's a great question. So the advice I'd give, because again, there's now this variety in colleges testing policies, the best thing to do is for students and families to go straight to each college's website. They do a good job of making very clear, right? When are applications due? Do we require test scores, et cetera, et cetera? Go straight to the source to make sure you know. But as students are kind of developing that list that they're interested in, that's something they should go and do. So they have a sense for, okay, on this one, I've got to put a score. On this one, I'm going to have a choice.
Wonderful. Prscilla, what are the best websites to go to find out all the information on everything from taking the SAT to Khan Academy, to the Blue Book, and everything else that you've talked about today?
Yes, the best place to go is SAT.org, O-R-G. There you're going to see upcoming test dates. You can register. We have information and links to all of that free practice I talked about. So SAT.org is the single best place to go.
That's easy. Now, that's a question I could have answered. SAT.org. Wonderful stuff. Thank you so much, Prscilla Rodriguez, and so much pertinent information if you have someone who is college bound and you may want to know. Senior Vice President of College Readiness Assessments, thank you for your help today.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
Thank you all for listening to The Way Home this week and to my wonderful guests. And may you all have a wonderful week that is safe, that's happy, healthy, and full of lots of miracles as well. I'm Laura Smith. See you next time from The Way Home.
Podcasts by Federated Media.